Welcome to the Be That Healing Girl podcast. And today on this episode, it's going to be different in the best way possible, bringing on our very first Be That Healing Girl podcast guest. And I'm really excited because this is a previous client who we got reconnected and she had some amazing updates. And I had been noodling with this idea of having guests on the podcast anyway. And this is a perfect intro. And I really wanted you to be able to hear directly from the horse's mouth around what it's actually like when you start to do the deeper work, the subconscious work. And she is just a great example of somebody who went all in and is experiencing incredible, life-changing results from that. So with no further ado, can't wait to dive in with you. Let's get started. Welcome, Athena, to the Be That Healing Girl podcast.
Hey, Claire, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am equally, if not more excited, and I was thinking it was about time to have some guests on, and you had sent me a message out of the blue that I was like, I've always wanted Athena and to bring clients on to the show, and I felt like this totally random message from you that literally made me just so happy for where you're at and how you feel. I was noodling on this idea anyway, and I'm just really excited to have you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and share my journey. This has been an incredible last couple of years, so it's amazing.
I know it's just been so special for me to be by you and next to you in that process. And I think instead of just talking about the rando message that you sent me after we completed working, I think the message was from September, so it's not too far away. It was like about a month ago. But would you be willing to share what you sent me?
Sure.
Part of it.
So I'm going to read part of it to you. We had worked together quite a bit, and then I had kind of a break where I was really busy with all my businesses. I'm an entrepreneur. I have like 3 different businesses going on at any given time. So there's not so much downtime, but one day I thought of you and I wanted to send you something. So I'm just going to read a little so you guys can hear. So it says, "Hi, Claire. I hope you're doing great. Your trip abroad looked incredible. I'm so happy to see you so happy. I just wanted to pop in and give a quick update. Life is lifing as usual. My boyfriend's mom has been sick and lots of stress around us lately and even a few fights because we have been exhausted. But I think of you daily. Every time there's an altercation, I hear your voice in my head. I hear you saying, 'Who are you being today, Athena? How is your little self? Have you talked to her lately?' I listen, I breathe, and I regulate. I'm not lying at all. If it wasn't for you and our time together, I know I would have lost the love of my life to my overthinking and outbursts before I learned how to regulate myself. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time, patience, and love, and teaching me the techniques I never learned in over 20 years of therapy. I love you so much and so many hugs." And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, Claire. You changed me deeply inside in a way that 20 years of therapy and tens of thousands of dollars didn't touch me. I made improvements. I definitely grew, but I didn't gain the knowledge of myself and the confidence to move forward in the ways I have until I worked with you.
Oh man, I might be in my luteal phase. It's been a crazy couple days post-election, but like I am trying not to sob right now. And I'm just feeling so honored and blessed. And this is something that I do with clients, and I've told you this, but I just want to share with you. I have the tools. Yes, I was right by your side, and I will always give you your power. That I can tell you how to do it, but at the end of the day, you're doing the heavy lifting. And the only reason why, Athena, that you have saved this relationship and stopped the overthinking, been able to regulate, was because you were willing to pick up the weight. Like, you showed up to the gym. I showed you the weights. I showed you how to do the exercises, but at the end of the day, you did all the heavy lifting. So it was a co-creation. We did it together.
So proud of myself.
As you should be. And I just want to say, and I want to go to the reality of where you were, because when I have one-on-one clients apply, I have a session with them. I just check in to make sure that we're a good fit. And your session, like the initial like consultation to see if we were a good fit, I still hold it so deeply in my heart. And I
Aw.
remember how you were showing up. And I just want to take a moment for us and for you to go back to that version of Athena when we first started working together, the very first call. Well, first of all, tell me, what were you experiencing in that moment? Like, what was it like for the Athena that finally said, okay, this isn't working. I want to talk to Claire. Like, where were you with your overthinking, your
Yeah.
anxiety, and your relationship?
If overthinking and anxiety was a 0 to 10 scale, I was like a 25, okay? Because I was, so as, I mean, I think this is the same with a lot of your clients. Like, we're high achieving girlies, right? Like, we're all like, top of our class. Some of us, went to high ranking schools. You get out of school, you get these businesses, you start moving and shaking. You've got like all kinds of stuff under your belt, and you're like, man, I got this in life, right? But then you get in relationships and even with family and friends, and you're just like, why am I hitting the wall? Why am I struggling so hard here? Why can't I like find my way in life? And you get into therapy and all this stuff. And the bottom line is, for me with the anxiety, it was debilitating. I mean, it was to the point where I'm a work from home person, and so I don't have to be up at like a certain time in the morning. And I would set my alarm for 7:30 to go to the gym, and it was like I'm pressing the snooze button for an hour and a half because I would literally be sitting there staring at a blank wall, thinking of all the bad things that could happen, whether it be about my relationship or in life in general. And then all of a sudden it's like the gym time is over. So it's like now I've lost the time that was for me because I'm thinking of that. Also, you stress out all your friends because you start like, putting it all out there, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? This and that. And even if you have a best friend that's amazing to you, there's just a point where people are like, we can't be there for you anymore. You know what I mean? You've got to find your own way. And it's just so debilitating. I mean, I was to the point where like, I'm trying to work from home. I'm trying to get things done. And there were like hours a day I'm devoting to thinking out these scenarios in my head that have not even ever occurred. And I just got to a point where, and the doom scrolling, the endless scrolling on Instagram, on TikTok, but thank God for that doom scrolling, because the algorithm led me to you. And one day I was like, I see this woman here and she's got some tips. And so maybe she could help me. So that's the point I was at. It's debilitating. And
Yeah.
saying that out loud is embarrassing. But I know there's so many other girls out there right now that are going through the same thing. So I just want to put it out there. If you're in that phase of life where you're just scrolling and staring at the wall and overthinking for hours a day, and you've listened to all the podcasts and you're like gone to therapy and you're just like, why can't I break out of this? Like, just know other people were in the same shoes as you.
I just want to say, just thank you for being so courageous. And I just really relate. And you and I have talked in depth about where this really comes from. If you're listening and you are relating to Athena, this is like the bread and butter that I work with, where Athena, you're obviously very accomplished, like multiple businesses, really achieved a lot as far as letters behind your name, valedictorian, I believe, like went to like a really great school. Even competitiveness was part of what you did, right? As a beauty person. And I just want to say that this is so normal with the women that are in my community that I work with, because it is super vulnerable, which is part of how you got to the point that you're at. The lack of vulnerability was causing the disconnection in relationships. And the first step of healing is saying, hey, this is hard. I am struggling with this. And thank God for the algorithm and that it brought us to be connected together. And yeah, I'm just really, really grateful for that. And so when you found me and you're experiencing the overthinking, the overanalyzing, how did you know you were at the lowest of the low? Like, was there a certain point, or was this a culmination of just lots of time and energy not worth, spending time that could have been used for your businesses in overthinking? Like, what was there a certain point, or was it just like a slow disintegration?
It was definitely a slow disintegration for me, to the point, but definitely I would say it kind of came to a head where there were so many days where I just felt no productivity. I felt like I was spending more time a day thinking about possible scenarios in life than I was actually getting progress done in my life. I spent a lot of time in the last couple of years on my health. I spent a lot of time focusing on losing weight, getting healthy, gaining muscle, all this stuff. And I just had no desire. Like, I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to eat right. I didn't want to drink my water. I didn't want to go for walks. I just was like in the room, like sitting there. And yeah, a lot of people could say, oh, that's depression or this or that. But at the end of the day, you can, sabotage yourself into thinking like all these horrible things, or you can sit there and face it and say like, maybe there's somebody out here who can help me. Also, I was at a point in a relationship where it was just like constant, every single time we're together, like, are we going to have this, conversation? Are we going to like get to this point? Like, what do I need to know? All this pressure. And I just felt like it was a tipping point where it's like, either I'm going to figure this out inside myself, or I'm going to project this onto everyone around me where no one wants to be around Athena.
Totally. Right. And I want to talk more about that. And I also just want to point to something that I think can lead so many women. And you were definitely in that point too, because 20 plus years of therapy. And I just want to make the disclaimer, okay, for anybody listening, that I believe in therapy and I believe in counseling. And what I'm curious about, because I was in this place, so I can only speak from my personal experience. But again, a lot of my community can really relate to this. For me, I got to the point, and I had been in therapy for just years, right? Since I was 16 years old, in and out, doing different techniques, EFT, CBT, like all these different things. And I still felt like I would leave therapy or leave counseling. I'd be maybe okay for an hour or a day, and then it was like right back, right? The change was very short-lived, if there was any change. And I feel like this was my experience, and I just want to see and be curious about your experience. But for me, it felt really defeating. I felt really frustrated because at the end of the day, I felt like I was falling through the cracks. Like there was something like a layer deeper that my therapists and counselors, who were all wonderful, like I definitely had some breakthroughs in different ways, but at the same time, I felt like there was something missing. Either they really didn't deeply understand my experience, they hadn't walked the path themselves. And I find that a lot with my clients. They have long history of therapy, and a lot of them are currently in therapy, but somehow they fell through the cracks of that therapy and counseling. And so I'm curious, what did you notice was the big difference so that has completely changed things from working together?
Well, I think the thing about therapy is it's a science-based type of practice, right? So these are people that have had years and years of training, and they have years and years of training on like a baseline of like how the brain works scientifically, chemically, all that kind of stuff. So the help and advice that they're giving to you is a textbook-based type of advice. And over time, obviously, I had great therapists too, and I really thank them for a lot of things that they got me through in my life. But I think that it's kind of like almost like a one and done approach for a lot of people. And the two things that really stood out to me in working with you is, number one, like you said, having somebody that had been through the exact same scenario. So unless you're able to find a therapist, which you might be lucky enough, that can really relate to you on a one-to-one level, like, I've been there, I've done this, right? And this is what I struggled with, and I can help you because of that. So that's number one. It's hard to find somebody. Number two is being at your most vulnerable. So in all my years of therapy, I had never been able to really come out and look myself in the mirror in front of the therapist and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I sent this many text messages, or I want to say this. I'm so angry inside, right? Because in a way, to me, and maybe people have a different experience, but to me, I almost felt like this is a like very educated person with like a white coat on sometimes. And, my therapist is like, a doctor. And I'm like, I don't want to like be my most vulnerable self, because it was like embarrassing. And it's like, I don't want to say like my lowest of my lows, because, what will they think of me, or this or that? But being able to talk to you and relate to you in a way where you're like, hey, I did this and this and this. And I'm like, oh my God, me too. It was finally able, big part of healing, right, is finally able to look yourself in the mirror and say what you've really been doing to your life. And until we started working together, I was never able to fully say that out loud to anybody. And that was like my first step in healing.
I mean, I'm just getting all teary-eyed again, and just hearing you reflect that to me, and I do really believe in that, and this is just proof in the pudding that one of the things that I'm really proud of in session when I work with clients, especially in a one-on-one setting, is creating emotional safety. Because if we don't feel emotionally safe with the person that's next to us on the journey, then we're not going to feel safe anywhere. We're not going to feel safe in our relationships. We're not going to feel safe when that trigger of the abandonment is happening. Really, it starts with feeling emotionally safe. And I also just really pride myself in teaching you that. And the proof is in the pudding. Like your relationship is saved. You're doing amazing. We'll talk more about that. And before we can talk about how much it's changed, let's just talk a little bit about, like, where were you at in the relationship? Like, were you just dating? Where were you in that interaction? And I do know this, and this is what we uncovered about your situation, but our listeners don't know. What was it like for you in the relationship? Where were you guys?
It was really hard because I've always been a person that in relationship, just to be flat out honest, I had a very poor relationship history prior to the current one. I was with people that were narcissistic, people that were not very nice to me at all. And I went through a lot of therapy, thank God, which got me through those situations. And then I did take a lot of time alone to heal myself before I jumped into anything else in life. So I think that's really important too, is like to take time for yourself. But then once you do meet, the great guy that you've been like waiting for, you're like, oh my God, I met this great guy. And you tell your best friend and you're like, oh my God, I met this person. But then those thoughts are still there, right? It's like creeping up. And I was to the point where when I came to you, Claire, it was kind of like, I don't know what we're going to do, because I'm at the point where I'm like, why isn't he doing this and this and this? And I want this and this and this. And he's not giving that. And what's going on? And and I've listened to your podcast over and over. And at that point, and now even recently, as I listen to your podcast, I love that you have the part on where you take the questions, and and I see so many women, and part of a lot of what they say is like, oh my God, I'm doing this, but he's not giving me this. Like, how can I change him, type of thing, right? And when I listen to it now, I hear myself in those right. women's voices, and I'm like, oh my God, I see where they're at. And then I can answer the question now, like before you do, which is so cool. I'm like, oh my God, yes. And I'm like, I got it. And it's almost like a game show. And I'm like, I got the answer. And so I was at that point where they're all at, where I'm like, I want him to change. Like, why isn't he not doing what I want him to do? Right? What can I do to do that? And I remember our very first session where we got together, and I almost just verbally throw up there. And I'm like, Claire, why isn't he doing this and this? What's going on? Why is he doing this? I want this from him, and he's doing this. And you looked at me and you literally were like, Athena, we're going to talk about you and me. Like, what are you doing? And at that point, I was just like, oh, wow. This is totally like a different approach than I've ever seen before. And that's when I really realized, we were not at a good point. I was being completely anxious. I was giving off a totally bad vibe. I wouldn't want to be around that person right now. And I didn't see that in me at all. And I was just trying to change somebody, which is no point in that in this world, right? You can only work within yourself. And I had no realization of what I was doing.
Totally. Yeah. I remember that session too. I mean, it's funny to say that, because I really, when I'm in session, I'm so connected to your experience. I remember that session. I remember just lasering in on you and saying whoa. And I will just say that to the listeners right now. If you're, I will just say this. I am not, I've said this in session. This is not the first time for those of you who are in my world, to hear this. I am not God. I don't have a magic 8-ball. I don't have a wand. I don't have a pot that's toil and trouble. Don't can't even say it right.
I don't even know.
Toil, boil and trouble.
Yeah,
somebody
there you
go.
go.
Pick that. Yeah, but I don't. And I will say this just straight up to everyone. If you come to me and you're change that person, I'm not the coach for you. I can't do that, because, and no coach, if a coach is telling you they can make somebody act a certain way, they are selling you snake oil. That's not reality. because we can't control anything outside of ourselves. And we can't even control ourselves, but we are in charge. And what I love about you saying, like, this is a game show, and you're still listening to the podcast, which I fucking love you. And what I love is that you, through our work together, my intention is that you learn the tools. You learn the tools. And we've had the pleasure of working together one-on-one. You know, what I'm sure you might know, or maybe you didn't know, but I walked you through the pillars of what I think is really, not what I think, what I know is critical in you healing anxious attachment, which is the pillars that I teach in the confidence code. Now I have the Healing Girl Gang, where this is like the cruise ship approach. And you're in Florida, so you know, like, you're very, yeah, you're like, we'll talk more about, you know about that. But it's definitely a cruise ship approach to healing. And what I love is that you're also a pedal to the metal woman, and you took everything I did and did it to a T. When I gave you homework, you not only gave me like the homework to the letter, but you were in like constant contact with me around it. And I'm like, that's why I will always give it back to you, that your results are yours, they're not mine, because you went all the way. So another question that I have, because I also remember the first session, and the things that you were telling me about your partner, like, I didn't say it in the moment, but I will say it now. And I was like, oh, he's doing a decent job. You know, like, he's not a bad guy. And this is, again, I know that there is some of you out there, if not all, the majority of you that is hearing this, and you're actually with a good guy. And so tell me, taking ownership of how you were showing up, like, was he, at that point, our first phone call when we started working together, was he actually doing a good job?
Yeah, he was doing a great job. He was actually like taking a lot. And, you know, nobody is without, you know, trauma in their life. Nobody is without issues that they've had throughout their life. So he's, you know, he's not alone in that. He had his own things, and, you know, he was in therapy. I was in therapy. So, you know, we're both trying to do the work. But on my side, I was just being so anxious, and I was like, you know, you listen to all these podcasts and these in the reels. I mean, the doom scrolling with the reels. It's like, oh, you're anxious and they're avoidant. You're anxious and they're dismissive. And you just, you know, get in this pattern of like, oh my God, this person is this and I'm this, and that doesn't match, and we should do this. And like, you know, and there's no one size fits all, right? It's like trying on jeans. I mean, you could be the 10 different sizes in 10 stores. You're never going to fit the mold of like what somebody else made in a reel or somebody else's relationship. You need to do the work like within yourself. And he was showing up. He's there for me. I have all these businesses, you know, I'm struggling. He's showing up on the weekends, like helping out with my stuff. I'm helping out with his stuff. And I'm like, this is a good situation, but like, why is it not moving the way I want it to? And I just couldn't get to the root of that.
Yeah, I totally get that. And that's again, like, when we worked together and we went deep sea fishing, girl, you know, and you went there, we really got to the root. And I want you to share, without going too in depth, because what I also know can be troublesome, because those of you that are listening, I know that you're like willing to try anything and everything. And I want you to share what has been the tool, or what have you kept in mind to not only maintain, but to take your relationship even deeper and to be more connected, and for you to feel just to feel calm as consistently as like it's your new normal. Like, what do you keep going to again and again?
So number one, you just recently did a podcast on the micro steps of like, you know, that. And I think like if anyone hasn't listened to that, go back and listen to that, because those 3 steps right there are like key, right? So take walks, like breathe. I know it sounds stupid. I mean, Claire said it in the podcast too. It sounds dumb. Like no one wants to hear those things, but get outside, get the fresh air, take a walk, drink your water, go to the gym, like do the things for yourself. Put yourself first, right? Stop the doom scrolling, get out of your room, turn some lights on, like all that stuff, right? So that's like number one, is like you have to kind of get out of your own way. I think since, you know, the pandemic, a lot of us are like, especially if you're like work from home girly or whatever, you can spend a lot of time like alone in the room, and that's scary. That's a scary place. So we need to get out. We need to get light, sunlight, vitamin D. But the big thing, without going into too much detail, was really going into my subconscious and really realizing, like, why am I acting the way that I'm acting when XYZ occurs, right? So when he says, on Saturday, like, I'm not able to get together because I just really need some time alone this week. I've had a rough week at work and I need some time to myself. Okay, not raising the gigantic red flag that's like, bigger than, I could even hold, and saying, oh my God, like, why doesn't he want to get together? It's Saturday. That's our day. Like, oh my God, what's happening? You know what I mean? And just going in and realizing, like, why am I thinking that way? Like, what is triggering that? Breaking the pattern of overthinking in that way and self-sabotaging myself. Because now what happens, right, Claire, is Saturday comes and you're like, okay, didn't want to get together. And then Sunday comes and the person calls just thinking like, they're feeling great. They had their Saturday, they went to the beach, they had a lovely day. Now they call you on Sunday morning like, hey, how you doing? And maybe they were going to invite you to lunch. Maybe they missed you. Instead, this is you. Did you have a nice day? Right? And all of a sudden, now the mood is like, right? So you've got to, I had to really learn, like, my subconscious, like, where that was coming from. Why do I feel that way every time somebody says something totally normal to me that I would want to say and I would want space for? Why do I feel that way? And just breaking those habits down and realizing, how to hold myself and how to realize that, I can't be this way to anyone, and I can't be this way to myself. That's the biggest thing. Like, how does it make me feel all Saturday long when I didn't have a good day now because I'm thinking about it all day?
Right. And I love I just am like, we're both cracking up because it's so true. Like, you're out and frothing at the mouth on Saturday, and then they're like, hey, babe, Sunday. And it's like the goblin, like the red goblin emoji, like, like, what do you mean? Like, I'm fine. And I love that you are applying the deeper subconscious thing. And again, this is also why I'm so, like, delicate around saying it. But the reality is, everybody's subconscious, while there are similarities, we are all still uniquely different. And through the work that we've done together, your own specific makeup in how your subconscious is connected and how you make meaning, and all of these pieces are really unique, which is really the point of one-on-one coaching. Yes, the confidence code, I teach you the step-by-step pillars. Yes, in the Healing Girl Gang, we're going to talk about, like, it's like the cruise ship. We're going to go to different ports. We're going to go to Miami. We're going to go to the Bahamas. But really, you came to me at the point where, like, you needed just to get the wad of necklaces unraveled, which really is the whole point of that. So I love all of this. And I also just want to say, you had sent me while we were working together, and your change and transformation. And I just want to say, but give a caveat to people that everybody's journey is different. Now, you did everything to the T plus some, and I'm not saying that. And this is just a trigger warning for those of you that make healing about doing. Yes, there is action, but it's who you're being while you're doing something that matters. Because if you're doing things because Claire told you, and like that's not going to work. That's only more of the same. But I just want to be really clear that yes, you took a lot of action, Athena, but the distinguishing thing about why that action was so potent was who you were being while you were taking the action. You were being somebody that was compassionate, gracious, open, loving. And that is very different than somebody who takes action from a place of fear, from a place of blame, shame, criticism, and judgment. So yes, no, could you agree to that?
Totally.
Right. So just a caveat, because I know some people are gonna hear you say that, and they're like, well, it's all about the doing, and I have to do. And really, and you know this, that's actually just the wounded part. That feels like I have to do things in a relationship to get love and connection, when that is actually not how it works. So I just want to bring up, I was thinking about this too, because it was so, like, and again, I'm not God. Like, I'm just sitting here and teaching people tools, and like, it's incredible what you right? Like I'm like, here's some chicken and some vegetables, and you came to session with like a fucking like 5-course French meal, and I'm like, wow, like this is incredible. Tell me, because to me, I still remember this. You had messaged me. You went on a trip, and I not only did you go on a trip, I think he orchestrated the trip. So what I love about this is that we didn't focus at all on him. So just FYI, we work together. Anybody who's listening, like this is about you. This is about transformation from the inside out. And what was so amazing was how differently he responded to who you were being. Do you remember that trip? And then he was
Yeah.
yeah, okay, tell.
It's funny. Okay, so basically, there was a trip and it was like a guy's trip and it was like, okay, I'm going to go on this trip with my guy friends and da 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 da. And ladies, we all know, okay, let's just be honest with ourselves here. When your guy says, I'm going on the guy's trip, it's like, okay, you can be as cool and collected as you want, but you're all thinking it, right? You're all thinking like, what's really happening here? Like, where are they going? What's happening? Like, da da da. We've all seen the movie The Hangover one too many times. So it's like, we know the capabilities here. Okay. So it's like, we're all thinking that. And in the past, it would have been like, if it's a 3-4 day trip, it's like, oh my God, that 3 or 4 days are absolute crazy in your mind, right? You can't think, you can't sleep, you don't want to eat. You're like, oh my God, what's going on? Why aren't they calling? What are they doing? And after working with Claire, like this trip came up and I remember thinking like, okay, he's going to go on this trip. And then the entire trip, I was just like, cool. I was like, okay, well, we've done the work. We're here together. Like, he's going on this trip. And actually, I was really happy because we're like stressed out. We have a lot of work going on. And it's like, he needs this time. He needs this time to relax. And I remember saying goodbye and being like, babe, like, have a wonderful trip. Like, you deserve this and that. And I just sent him off like with love and with care. And a person who previously on a lot of trips would have like not checked in much, would have not texted much, would have been like, I really need my space, was like reaching out every day, was calling me like constantly, like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, can we talk later tonight when I'm done doing what I'm doing and this and that? And just to see like the transformation in, somebody feeling at ease enough to like check in on their own, like, how sacred like vacation time is in life right now, especially United States. We don't get much of that. And to be able to like take their time to still want to like check in and be there with somebody and, spend their time with that person, even though they're not there in the room. It just meant the world to me. And I was like, that was my first real indicator when we were working together that like, this is really like going in the right direction. This is really like the things I wanted to see happen for so long. And I was like pushing and grinding and like, why is this not happening? And it wasn't until, I really implemented the techniques that we worked on that I was able to hold myself in a certain way where he felt comfortable to come forward back to me in that way. And I think that's the hardest part about this journey is that we don't see like what we're putting out in the world, like how that affects others. And our work together is what really taught me that.
I mean, I remember that trip and it's like, man, this is gonna be dicey. And you doubled down on the work. And what I also loved was that you so focused on your own journey, and you're so right. You learning how to hold yourself and creating your own safety instead of taking all the action to make him do all these things that you really wanted. The reality is that as you learn how to hold yourself and as you learn how to soothe yourself, how to calm yourself down, it's natural. It's like a rubber band. Like if you are constantly stretching the rubber band in their direction, like they can't really move towards you. But instead, he was able to send, like, I remember, do you remember the time, like, he sent me a screenshot of his text to you, and you're like, who is this man?
Exactly.
Like, right. Tell me
it's like
about
a
that.
totally different person. I mean, like, I'm being honest with you, and it's like you're not doing anything like quote unquote different. Like, as women, I think we focus so much on like, oh my God, is it my hair? Do I look this certain way? Do I need to, go to the gym or, am I like cooking the right food? Am I like doing this for this guy, And we compare ourselves a lot, especially with social media, the way it is nowadays. But at the end of the day, this person is with you because they see something in you that they like, right? And they see a person that they could see like a future with, but for some reason it's not connecting to like go to the next level. So it's not until you like work within yourself that he like, starts texting me and is just like, I, miss you and I want to be around you and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God, who is this person? And it just came out of nowhere. And just so many amazing things have happened since then because of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, this all kind of circles back to who you were being. And I love what you shared around, like, again, it's the doing. This isn't about taking different actions necessarily. This is about the interchange. And it is like the amazing thing is that when we do the inner work, the deeper subconscious work, it's like bees to honey. Like they can't help but just be attracted to you. And so I just love hearing this. Your change has been absolutely incredible. And I want to just complete with this last question because I remember also, I don't know if you remember this, but our first call, you were kind of trying it out and we had an in-depth conversation and you basically were like, yeah, I'm shopping around. Like I'm looking at different coaches. And I also am just really clear too, like I really just trust my work and I trust the client results speak for themselves, not just you, but I share these a lot. But what would you say to Athena on that call, who was maybe crying a little bit, a lot, but what would, but, and then by PS, if you ever like hop on a consultation call, I expect that, like just to make everybody feel safe and like that, this is what I'm here for. But what would you say to that Athena that was on the fence, that was like, this is a big investment, like I want to work with you and I thought about it, like what would you say to Athena in the now, who you are now, to that version of Athena that was, I don't know.
Yeah, so there were 3 different people that I had found through the Instagram algorithm that just popped into my feed. And I was like, you know what, these 3 people are all saying great things. And I'm the type of person, like being a businesswoman, I want to try different things out, right? So, a lot of people give introductory free calls or whatever. So I was like, let me just set these up, because it's like everything in life. I treat everything in life like it's business. So I'm like, I got to set up these calls. I got to, interview these people. And you were actually the last one. And I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. And what I would say to my former self now, if I was in that position, or if you're listening at home and you're like, I don't know what I should do, just what I would say is you have to know that you yourself, no matter what else is going on around you, not your partner, not your kids, not your family, you are totally worth it. And that is what is the most important thing, is that Claire's space is a safe space. And to this day, like, it's going to sound corny, right? But I don't talk to her, all the time anymore because, we've kind of moved on from that. It's kind of once in a while thing. And I sometimes, if I'm having that moment in the car, I just turn on the podcast because I can hear her voice and I can hear it in my head. And I'm like, that centers me back to the place. So I remember our conversations. I remember our work. So I would say, like, everything in life is an investment. Vacation's an investment. Doing your hair is an investment. Going to school is an investment. But invest within yourself, because if you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, if you don't feel comfortable with the way you present in relationships, you don't feel comfortable with the trajectory. You've been in, 3, 4 relationships. These guys are decent guys, but why is it never going anywhere? Like, you need to really look within and invest into yourself, because if you don't, you're just going to be on the same hamster wheel, like over and over and over again. You can find, one of the original reels that I had seen of Claire's, which kind of got me into, the interview process with her, joining her program, was she had said something about that you had a realization with your husband that you could give up on the relationship and move on, and then a couple years later meet another great guy and be in the exact same position again. And that's what really made me realize, like, am I going to keep doing the same thing over and over again? Or am I going to finally heal the root of, like, what the problem is within me, so that I can present myself as the best version of Athena to whomever I'm going to be with in life? And hopefully, the cards go as they should. And then, I have happiness because of it. But invest in yourself. Believe in yourself. Know that if you do the work, you can make it happen. You're powerful. And as women that are successful, entrepreneurial women, a lot of the women that listen to this, I know, are very successful in many areas of life. just know you're not broken. Like, you can do big things in life. You can graduate from universities. You can, have real estate. You can have all these businesses. You can be an amazing mother. You're not broken. You can do this just like I could.
I mean, I am just blown away with how open-heartedly you've shared that. And I just want to add that what people don't realize is that they look usually at the investment, and I have different ranges now. I've realized that this is my purpose on earth. Like, I'm actually here to help heal at this level with women. And whether you're in the Healing Girl Gang, which is, it's not sliding scale, but it's less than a couple coffees a month, up to all the way to the one-on-one packages. And the reality is, it actually doesn't matter how high the ticket is or how low the ticket is. At the end of the day, you have to understand that, number one, just like you said, Athena, you're worth it. I mean, that's period. And then what you don't also realize is that it's costing you something invisible somewhere else. It's costing you the relationship, it's costing your peace of mind. I mean, how effective would you have been at all your entrepreneurial endeavors if you were still in that overthinking space, right? So, right, how much time would you have burned? How I think that you even mentioned to me how your businesses, like, you were able to really get shit done because you were able actually to focus. Right.
And now, I'll give you an update that you don't even know yet. Just 3 weeks ago, one of my major, I do consulting, one of my major clients' business went under. And that was one of my biggest sources of income. And I lost that 3 weeks ago. Athena, from a year and a half, 2 years ago, devastating. Right? Because it's like, now I've lost that. Like, what am I going to do? I go into the dark hole. Like, how am I going to survive? How am I going to get out? How am I going to get more clients? Like, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay my bills? Right? Athena now, breath inside and like, let's do this. Like, I'm a powerhouse. I can make this happen. Like, there's nothing but opportunity out there for me. So I just want to say that, like, this may be focused for a lot of people on relationship and on, like, your partner and like how you can advance with that in life, because as women, that's something we struggle with a lot sometimes, and people may come to you for that, but the skills that you learn on how to regulate yourself, how to hold yourself, are lifelong. Because I'm now at a point where big things that would have knocked me over like a tsunami just 18 months ago are now like a crack in the road. Like, okay, I'm going to trip. I'm going to say this is.
So thank you so much, Athena, for that. I know it got cut off a little bit, just technological stuff, but I just want to say from the deepest part of my heart, I love you so much. Like, I do really have such deep, deep love for you as a client, for all the people that are in my community. This is just what happens when you heal. Like, the unconditional love and the acceptance is just there. And I love you. Thank you for sharing so open and courageously around your transformation. That's what it is. You're a total 180. Like, the person that you were and the person that you're today, not just in the relationship, but like you mentioned, in your life and in your business, for example, is totally changed. So thank you so much, Athena, for sharing. Thank you all for listening. Like, we have just been going and it's been so incredible. And I love you so much, honey.
Thank you so much too, Claire. Okay. Thank you so much too. I really appreciate it. And I love you too. You've made a world of difference in my life. And I hope that other women can hear this and realize their worth and step up to it, because it's their turn now.
Yeah. Oh, all right. I love you, Athena, and I love you all. You got this.